Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Clallam County Economic Development Council's EDC's Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We are excited to have a really important presentation today from Superintendent Regan Nichols of the Sequim School District about their plans for construction for new facilities for the school district. So just a few housekeeping items before we kick it off. If you'll please keep yourself on mute so we don't hear any inadvertent background noises. And if you want to ask Regan any questions, you can raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you. Or alternatively, if you want me to ask your question, you can put it in the chat. So with that, Regan, thanks for all of your hard work and everything you do for the school district and the community of Sequim, and I will let you take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate being here this morning, and to all of you on the call, I'd like to say there's great appreciation from Sequim School District for all of the community engagement and partnership that we enjoy. Just so everyone knows, it's one of our 4 strategic plan goals to really work on our community partnerships. And I think that this is one of those opportunities to do just that. So I appreciate you being here today. I'm going to go ahead and share so that we can enjoy a slideshow together. And I think what my hope is today is that we learn some things together about our EP&O Levy proposition for educational programming and a school construction bond. So moving forward, we are looking for about a 33-day window toward a February 11th special election. And this special election will focus on 2 propositions from the school district. The first proposition is for the educational programming levy. That is a 4-year levy renewal. Sequim School District has enjoyed significant support over the years for educational programming levies. This levy over 4 years would collect $36,204,000 toward funding gaps that come when state apportionment does not fulfill all of the needs for the schools. And we'll talk more about that. The second proposition, as Colleen mentioned, is for a school construction bond. This is a bond for 20 years and is proposed to replace Helen Elementary School, the high school buildings A, B, C, D, and E, and has other aspects to it, which we will also review. The proposed bond amount is $145,950,000, and once again for 20 years. So first, I'd like to review the EP&O Levy renewal. If you do have any questions along the way, as Colleen mentioned, just use the raise hand feature and she'll help me to facilitate we get your questions answered. We also will have opportunity at the end. So funding educational programs in Washington State school districts, of course, comes from state apportionment, and in Sequim School District, approximately 70% of our budget is from state apportionment, but 17% is not covered either by state or federal means. And so we do turn to the educational program levy to fulfill that gap. This is a renewal levy, and so we have the opportunity every 4 years to go to the community and ask for this continued support. It does require a 50% majority, and we have found that the results have been incredibly supportive over the years. So we want people to understand what's inside of this ask. Here's the breakdown of the Sequim School District funding sources that we do have, and you'll see there the local need at 17%. The state and federal management, of course, comes to us in the forms of apportionments for either programs or for staffing, and the gap is significant. This gap is one that I think a lot of people might have questions about. We do have the ability to apply for grants, for instance, for things. Those are highly competitive, as you all know, especially with the EDC. And Sequim School District does do a lot of work with applying for grants. What we've found is that when you have especially federal grants or high-level state grants, there's an expectation that communities have an ability to pay, and you're scored based on that. Sequim School District sometimes runs into a challenge with pulling down those grants because of that issue. One area we're very successful, though, is CTE grant funding, and I'd like to call out Director Ned Flater that some of you may know. He does an amazing job in that area, and we continue to work on this. So the EP&O Levy does provide the funding for all of the programs you see here on the slide. So let's just talk athletics for a minute. Folks may not know that the state does not provide funding for athletics. We do have pay-to-play fees, so students do pay per sport. But that fee we try to keep as minimal as possible so that we have the ability for any student to participate who wants to. We have scholarship programs towards that fee, and we do rely on the levy to cover most of the costs. Music programs, both choral and for band, are covered through an EP&O levy. School nurses and counselors, we do receive some state apportionment towards those efforts, but not nearly enough to cover what a school district is required to be providing and should be. Special education, we have approaching an $800,000 gap between the actual cost of special education and the apportionment which we receive. So our education programs levy helps us to close that gap and cover those expenses. Highly capable program for those students who are demonstrating the needs to have education for their gifts. We need to make sure that continues to be an opportunity. And then technology and some aspects of facilities maintenance are not covered by state funds at all. So there is a slight increase this time around for the EP&O levy. And when I say slight, let me put that in context, 7 cents per thousand. And the reason that our school district is asking for the increase of 7 cents per thousand is because we have faced reductions to our budget for the past 3 years straight. We recognize that we do need to ask that we have the amount of our levy up to the state allowable cap. When you ask for the state cap, it is all managed through the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, so we are adhering, of course, to that. And we're asking because we know there are services that do need to be provided, and we have escalation every year. We want to make sure that we're meeting our commitment to the students there. So this slight increase is just to be sure we're continuing to move forward with the services students need.
So Regan, the levy, how long does it go for? I saw the bond was 20 years. How long is the levy period?
The levy period is 4 years.
4 years. Okay. And is the prior levy finishing out this year? So
yes,
one replaces the next? Okay.
Yes, it is a renewal. So December 31st, our current levy will conclude.
Okay. And then this one won't start until January 1st?
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I'd like to show a little history about the property values and school taxes and patterns that we've seen over time. So you can see that back in 2022, the school district was anticipating asking for $1.24 towards the school levy. And this is for educational programming. Over time, because of the residential builds and the ability to share the fixed amount over more and more households because of the construction that's happening in our community, we have actually realized improved tax rates for individual taxpayers. So we're down now to 87 cents per thousand rather than the predicted $1.25. And as we move into the new period, which you've spoken about, Colleen, because this is a renewal, our prior levy will fall off. The 94 cents, we do project that we will see a similar pattern with that amount as well in going down, simply because we see there are so many residential construction projects in the works over the next 5 to 8 years. like everyone to know that Sequim School District's school tax rates actually rank 236th out of 295 school districts. This is a 2023 number because we are awaiting the number from 2024. But I will say that I think tax rate responsibility has been something that our school board and also our long range facilities planning group has kept front of mind. And I think with these two propositions, those two elements continue to show that the school district is being responsible in what it's asking and recognizing taxpayers do want to be sure there's some consistency here and that there's responsibility in what's being asked. So speaking of responsibility and what is being asked, I want to let everyone know that although the educational program levy is falling off because we will be concluding it in December of 2025, we also will be concluding our current capital levy, and that will also fall off. And this capital levy has had so much work being done on it since 2022. I just wanted to demonstrate that to you all and show all of the completed projects that we have been working on. We have been using local labor for most all of these projects. A few names just to tell you, our HVAC project, for instance, is being facilitated by Neely Construction. Subcontractors are on our campus every day from local entities. So we're very proud that we have been able to move forward so many projects and include local labor, but also complete what the community had asked that we commit to from the levy ask in the past. Amidst COVID and coming out of COVID with all of the issues that came about with having equipment being able to be delivered or not, cost escalations that have occurred, of course, over those years. We know in this final year we'll be tying up some final projects, but we've had some tremendous success and we expect this to carry forward if the community does support our bond successfully in February. And I just would stop here. Are there any questions about the capital levy projects or anything you've seen going on at our school district? Okay, well, I hope that you have seen the progress or at least heard about it. And one of the things you can see right now happening, if you go to a basketball game, one of the projects was our new basketball floor and then also HVAC, so we can keep toasty in there while it's happening. Another exciting venture that we are on is the Ramponi Center for Technical Excellence. It's our CTE center. The Olympic Peninsula is at a place right now where there's so much synergy between partners. EDC certainly leading the charge here. Peninsula College is on fire, in my opinion. Port Angeles School District being successful with their school construction bond just in November. There's so much that's being looked forward about, and the future is very exciting. We would like to be part of that, of course, and our CTE center that is right now in the stage of having RFQs for project management in the queue, and also recognizing that we have local partners like Rotary who are coming forward in so many ways, helping us with our CTE community group, donating money toward this cause, significant funds. And we say thank you very much, and we're very excited about where this is going. Will the CTE Center look just like this? This rendering is our initial work to come up with a concept design. It will be housing construction trades. And I'm excited to tell you that in our middle school this year, we started an industrial arts class so that we would have a group of students ready to go into this new center once it's built and have more advanced construction trade training. It has been so popular in our middle school that this month we're starting a second group of students. So we're going to have 2 sections. And I'm excited to also tell you that girls have taken hold, and we have a significant group who are very excited in these classes, and we're having them build things like gazebos, picnic tables. Right now, they're working on a project of rocking horses. It's really exciting to see, and they'll be working on some community-based projects too.
That's really exciting. And when do you expect to be able to break ground?
We actually are looking probably into next fall or the spring. What we're doing right now is thinking about synergy between this project that we have in the queue and the potential for the bond to pass. The high school campus becoming more unified is a goal for everyone. So we're going to just be watching and hopeful and see if we can have that occur.
So, and Regan, just to let you know, Representative Theringer just joined us, and I know he was integral in getting the $5 million at the state level.
Well, good morning to you, Representative Theringer, and I just can't say enough. I did speak earlier about partnership, but this state capital allotment for our Sequim School District is going to change the opportunities that our students have, and we're just so excited about it. All right, so let's go ahead and keep talking construction and talk about potential for school construction in Sequim. This proposed bond is going to replace the expiring capital levy project that we just looked at. And we're excited for that because we know that all of the capital levy projects we've been working on are keeping our buildings moving forward, able to have our students in them, but the next stage is really about modernizing, making sure safety aspects are fulfilled, and also giving our students opportunities that might be challenging for us to do right now. So our community has been working with us. We have a long-range facilities planning group that has been working for now almost 8 to 9 months. And this group has come together to evaluate all of the potential projects that could be on a bond and have whittled it down to the ones that they feel are the most immediate needs. But the priorities that this group has had is to make sure we're paying attention to data. So we have the building conditions assessment scores, and I'll talk more about those from a third party. All of our buildings have been evaluated in 2024. The priority for the long range group was to make sure those with poor scores were put first. Tax rate responsibility that we already discussed today has been on the forefront as a priority. The improvement of school safety and security has been job one. Want to make sure that our campus is fulfilling that responsibility to students, family, and community. And then building modern facilities so that educational program for the 21st century and for the opportunities students need to have in the future, one of those being trades, we want to make sure that our facilities can facilitate those needs. So let's talk about those scores. The third-party group, state certified, they come out and they walk every building with checklists galore. And you'll see here that our buildings have come back with scores and the rubric is down below. Helen Elementary presented poor scoring, as did buildings A, B, C, D, and E at the high school campus. Those sets of buildings have been prioritized for replacement. And the reason for replacement instead of a major remodel is because we had an analysis done of what it would cost to renovate. Renovation of Helen Elementary would be 1.6 times the cost of replacement, and renovation at the high school would be 1.8 times the replacement cost. So we know to be fiscally responsible, replacement is the key. We've also paid attention. Our neighbors, Port Angeles School District, currently are working on their middle school, and they had also investigated remodeling as a potential aspect and found quite quickly that replacement was a key. So the age of the facilities is the issue. Infrastructure systems in each of these buildings are a significant challenge and are costing us significant funds every day to keep them maintained and moving forward. Most of the buildings were built in the 60s and 70s. I'll show you a timeline of exactly when construction dates were happening. We have areas of schools that are not allowing us to even put in modern infrastructure. We have deteriorating electrical. We also have maxed out electrical systems. For instance, we thought about putting exterior lighting improvements on our high school campus because of community requests. This time of year, you can imagine getting around our campus in the darkness is a challenge. We don't have the ability to put in additional electrical load. HVAC improvements we've had to address through our capital levy most recently in some cases because we were actually using space heaters that were purchased from Home Depot just to keep students warm in many, many areas of the high school. So we have drainage systems, we have dry wells under our buildings because that was the infrastructure of the 60s and 70s. And those are now filled with debris. The reason that we can't get to them is most of those dry wells are under buildings, and then to excavate, you have to go around all of the utilities that have been woven in over all of these decades to the buildings. It just is not a system that we can renovate easily at all. Also, the modern safety and security practices, we have over 100 entrances between Helen Elementary and the high school. All of those buildings have exterior doors in the California campus style. Those need to be considered for modern building access control systems. We still want to be a welcoming campus, but we want to be efficient in how we're welcoming visitors and making sure we're aware of who's on our campus and how they are entering our buildings and why. This type of a system will be having buildings replaced, but in a new style so that we have instructional wings and we can manage entrances. We also have other systems like our transportation center that used to be an old lumber yard. We have facilities that were never meant to necessarily facilitate the functions they do now, and we want to be sure we're addressing those needs. So here's the timeline of when our buildings were constructed. You can see back to 1932, where we have the current district office where I'm speaking to you from right now. We're still utilizing that office, and that is not at all scheduled for this bond. But when you look to 1967, you'll see the start of the construction for both Helen Elementary and the high school buildings. 78, those buildings had additions or different buildings constructed, and we're focused on those as being the poor scoring buildings. One of the issues, of course, is concrete masonry as the primary building methods. Those concrete cinder blocks, if you can picture that, were filled with insulation, and that contains vermiculite, and that vermiculite contains asbestos. So for us to move on any level of renovation, for instance, would require abatement. And abatement is so cost prohibitive that that's part of the reason for the 1.6 to 1.8 renovation cost over replacement. Our last bond, just so everyone knows, was 28 years ago, just about 29 years ago, actually, for the middle school. The middle school built in 1998 had a bond passed in 1996, and that has been the last time that Sequim has enjoyed a school construction bond. So we know the time is now to bring this forward as a choice for the community. Also, we're going to talk about Greywolf a little bit. Greywolf, we consider it to be one of our newest schools, but it is 33 years old, and we have systems like HVAC inside Greywolf that are ready for replacement. So addressing the needs, the bond ask for $145 million includes multiple projects, and I'd just like to review those for you now. These are prioritizing the most urgent needs, not a wish list. We have reams of chart paper with all of the potential projects that could be qualified, but we have had the long-range group prioritize here. Replace Helen Elementary School. replace 5 buildings at the Sequim High School to create a secure campus. So we would not replace those buildings as they exist now. We would build instructional wings and try to incorporate H building, which was one of the newer buildings on the campus. Ensure all the schools, every single one, have secure entrances. That's one of the best practices that is forwarded by every safety entity for school construction. Greywolf Elementary needs improvements. It is 33 years old. Also, if you've ever visited Carlsborg Road during dismissal or pickup, you know that traffic management on that campus is a challenge. It was never built for the modern era of the number of parents who come to pick up students and the number of buses that we run concurrently. We want to make sure at Greywolf that the cafeteria need is addressed. Our children at Greywolf all eat in their classrooms, and there is not a cafeteria built on that building. Our gym is used for PE throughout the day, so we would like to make sure that that need is met as well. Upgrades to the multi-sport athletic facility. I'll talk more about the details in that, but we recognize that we are one of the only school districts in the region that continues to have some of the field conditions that we do. And we also understand that we have ADA issues that need to be met and some configurations that are not considered appropriate for state level competitions. So we want to rectify those. And then fix the transportation center, that old lumber yard. There's a lot going on there, and most people don't know because it's not a place you would typically visit. Bus loops and parking drop-off areas are also priorities for traffic management and efficiency. So we'll go through each of the challenges that we have here with the groups, but I'll pause here. Are there any questions or comments before we move into the individual locations?
You mentioned the transportation center. What kind of improvements are you looking at there that are needed? And that's on 7th, is it, south of the highway?
Okay, it's actually on 3rd, and
Okay.
it is it's an old lumber yard that has a garage where we fix one bus at a time. And the garage was actually a lumber storage area. And the bus pulls in, and the situation that we have is that it's starting to crack along the concrete wall. We have Z cracking. We also have one of the walls that's leaning 2 degrees right now. The reason for the cracking is that the drainage is also a dry well system on that facility, and it is causing water backup, and the foundation is starting to degrade. We also recognize that we don't have a lift in that facility for the bus mechanic to work. So he is on one of the rolling carts underneath the bus, fixing those every day. We need to modernize that facility for the best practice safety. We also have a number of aspects of that building that we have had roofers tell us they're no more willing to get on the roof because the timbers that are holding the roof up are starting to deteriorate as well to a degree that is not safe. We have corrugated steel panels that blow off in some of our windstorms that we have, and so we need those replaced, of course. And then the facility itself was never designed to facilitate some of the needs we have for our bus driving core and fleet and fueling. Fueling of the future will be different than just straight diesel and gasoline needs. And so we recognize we need the infrastructure. The PUD has let us know because we've had it evaluated. We're applying for grants, as I've said, some for electrical infrastructure just to get started on what this could be on the peninsula. And we don't have the ability to have a fleet of electric buses in our future right now. We're not even certain that's the direction we would go for our fleet, but we do want to be assessing for the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Helen Haller Elementary, you recognize the building, I'm sure, constructed in 67 and 78. We have the antiquated infrastructure, of course. The outdated heating cooling systems are quite old. You would see that we do not have cooling in this building, only heating. We are assessing the number of cooling days in a year before we make decisions about what should be. But I will say school is starting to occur in different months of the year because we are required to have, for instance, summer school, extended school year for certain student groups, and we need to be able to manage that. But heating is our main issue, and so it's a challenge at Helen Haller. Outdated plumbing, the bathrooms at Helen Haller, if you visited those, you'd see they do not have adequate numbers of stalls for students. They do not have upgraded infrastructure for what is typical in a modern school of today. And then that insufficient electrical capacity is a real issue for us. You can see there 1.6 times the cost to renovate as to replace. So this project is eligible for state construction assistance program funding at $5.2 million. So we are going to be moving forward to apply for that. However, you are only eligible to apply once your community has passed a school bond. So in order to receive this level of support, we need to have a passed bond.
So Regan, what is that match amount? Is it a percentage of what is being spent for the entire bond, or the bond for this that would go to this school?
So school construction assistance money is tied to individual buildings. Mm-hmm. So each building on the Helen Haller campus has a certain algorithm that it is applied to. And one of the key components of, we call it SCAP. One key component is the age of the facility. So your facility has to be 30 years or older to even reach a threshold for consideration. And then there is the algorithm that's applied. And there are several aspects to it in order to have your community eligible for SCAP. But of course, Helen Haller's age allows it to qualify. I will say this to you, our high school buildings also are of the same vintage. But the ability for us to qualify for SCAP for those buildings is not the same as Helen Haller, because some of the SCAP money was used in a prior decade to do an energy efficiency project that was quite substantial. So when you look at the high school buildings, they kind of look stuccoed on the outside because this energy efficiency project was done. So we aren't eligible for the SCAP on high school yet. That's not till 2031. And we did an analysis around, should we wait for that? But the amount that we would receive is about 4.7 million, and the escalation of the project costs are estimated to be approximately 8 million. So the math doesn't work out to wait. So we've really looked at this because we want to pull down as much money as possible from SCAP.
Got it.
The purple area here demonstrates where Helen Haller would be proposed to go. This is simply a conceptual rendering to capture the square footage that would be needed. The design elements, we haven't moved out on that because we don't have the funding to do so. If the bond passes, we would then be eligible to have the funding to go ahead with design, and that will be a community inclusive process. We'll be asking community members to be involved in roundtables, staff members, making sure that people can talk about what they would like to see to meet the educational programming needs. Sequim High School, buildings A, B, C, D, and E, also constructed in 67. I want to talk about science labs here. Literally, if you are an alumni on the call, welcome. And I would say the buildings that you had science in, you would go back to those buildings right now and feel like you were right back in class, down to the countertops on the science lab tables. Those science lab tables have black counter surfaces, and we haven't even been able to, for instance, buff those out to improve the status of them because they are capping asbestos underneath. The cabinets, everything there looks the same and similar. So when we say they're not designed for modern learning needs, that's exactly what we mean. The campus, of course, has those 11 separate buildings, and this would be an effort to make sure that we are unifying the campus. All of the infrastructure issues I've already talked about exist in these buildings. The high school solution, you'll see the purple is contemplating the square footage that would be needed to replace the yellow buildings. And those yellow buildings, there are two others over on the right-hand side you can't see the whole portions of, but that square footage would be captured in this purple unified instructional wing that would attach to the H building. Once again, this is just a conceptual rendering. In the design process, the community and, of course, staff and leadership will decide what type of campus look people want and design that will meet our programming. Here we have the comments about the 4.7 million in SCAP that is not eligible for us to receive because of the energy efficiency project of the past, but the escalation in project costs if we wait. Secure entrances are needed at every building. If you go to visit Greywolf today, you reach the front door. We have a doorbell system. You ring the bell and someone will come and let you in. We would like to have welcoming entrances at every building where you walk through doors such as these and you are welcomed by somebody who is actually staffing that area to assist you, and also to make sure we're well managing our traffic in and out of our building each day. This is best practice consideration by multiple school security entities, including governmental agencies. Greywolf improvements, that cafeteria, you'll see here, this is a student who is eating lunch in the classroom. This happens every single day. We'd like to go ahead and rectify that situation and have a convening place for students. We also have the HVAC improvements, and traffic engineering will be substantial at Greywolf. Upgrades to the multi-sport athletic facility. Of course, they're used by so many outside groups. Our athletic facilities are busy day and night. So we have full schedules for all of our areas, but we're focused on fields with this bond. And the soccer fields are not the regulation width to host championships for soccer. So we do have the right length so we can play home meets, but we can't bring in championships, which we'd love to do and we think it'd benefit the community. The track shape doesn't have the typical traditional arc, and so we would like to rectify that because it also prevents us from having championship meets. We did resurface the track, and so some folks have said, didn't you do the track? The resurfacing was supposed to be done every 10 years and hadn't been done for over 25 years. So we simply have put a surface so that the students can use it for the next couple of years while we contemplate, if the bond passes, how we do the full replacement. We want ADA seating for our fans. We've had fans talk to us about the accessibility for them to be able to come and watch their students, grandchildren, neighbors play, and we'd like to make sure that's done. And then the tennis courts do have significant cracking. We've actually gone out for grant money for the tennis courts. We did not score high enough because of the community's ability to pay, but we're going right back at it with the grant money because we do think we want to be sure we're doing everything we can to fund from other sources. Improvements to transportation, talked a lot about the center. The design of bus loops is to have maximum safety, have students picked up at schools, and also be sure that traffic is moving off of our main thoroughfares. We know that we are having backlogs in many places, especially out on Carlsborg Road. So let's talk quickly about tax rates and costs because I know our time is coming to a close. This is very important that we have transparency with our community so that they know exactly what the tax rate responsibility considerations have been. So if both propositions pass, we will see in 2026 that we would have a 94-cent EP&O levy to replace the 86-cent levy that you see in 2025. And then we would have a 91-cent school construction bond that would take the place of the 43-cent capital levy that's falling off after 2025 completes. This is a 56-cent increase to taxes. And what we want folks to know is that the tax rate responsibility was looked at over time. And this rate total of 185 is less than 2020's rate of $1.96.
So Regan, Darlene put a question in the chat.
Okay.
Her question is, are the sport fields played on grass or synthetic turf?
Currently, Sequim School District has grass fields, and I'll tell a little anecdote here. We were approached by the Olympic region soccer officials back last spring, and they actually came to us to say they were going to shut down sending officials for our soccer games because they felt our grass fields were unsafe. We responded to say, please come. We want to walk our fields with you, understand your concerns, because we feel that we've been doing a very good job of managing our grass fields. So they did come and they did walk with us. They showed us their concerns. But what the conversation turned to is it's so rare to have grass fields on high school campuses now that officials just aren't used to them. Right now, we're one of 2 schools in our region that has grass. And so we recognize that many fields are turf. It does take the pounding for the community use that many of our school districts face. We're one of them, but we actually have not made a decision that it would be turf as a replacement. We want that to be a community discussion. And we know that the quality of fields is what's important. We will discuss whether future of grass or turf is next.
Okay. Darlene's comment is synthetic turf is plastic and would cause PFAS poisoning.
Yes, we have recognized that there are research coming out about concerns with that, and so it will be a community discussion. We want to be sure that we're attentive to all of those concerns.
Great. Also, Mike Flynn says, where will the classes be held during construction?
Great question. Helen Haller Elementary will remain in the original Helen Haller, and we will build behind it. At the high school, if we contemplate that instructional wing being built, we would continue to have classes in those buildings that still that exist right now, and just cordon off the construction area. Of course, all of this will need to be assessed and designed. And so if we have additional issues we need to address with that, we certainly would for alternative space. Okay. All right, so tax rate effect for homeowners. We have 3 assessed property values from our community here. We are contemplating the effect of the 56-cent increase. We would see that for a $480,000 home, the increase annually would be about $270 a year, and per month that would be about $22.44. What's important is for the local tax rate comparison to be clear to our community. The 2024 average of our surrounding communities for school tax rate is about $2.26. Sequim School District will be coming in with this proposal at $1.85. So we are competitive within the region for school tax rate. And then the effect that, oh, go ahead. Yes.
An interesting point that I've learned over the years, District 1, which I don't think exactly equates to the Sequim School District, because I think the Sequim School District is larger than District 1, but District 1 being the Sequim area, 3 districts for Clallam County Commissioners, PUD is different, Port Commissioners though. District 1, though it represents 1/3 of the population of the county, it represents 1/2 of the property values and thus the property taxes that are paid, just because it's newer construction and larger homes generally.
Okay. Speaking of community growth and construction, I've certainly spent time speaking with the city of Sequim, speaking with the county, and we're well aware of the residential construction projects that are slated for our community. Remember, Sequim School District is unique in that it stretches over 2 counties, Jefferson and Clallam, and we understand that as these residences are built, we will see the effect where the burden of taxation is shared by many more residences. And that same fixed bond and levy amount is the approach in Washington State. I know that there are many folks that move here from other states where this isn't the way it works, but in Washington State, schools are asking for fixed levy amounts, so the increased construction is very much a help to the tax burden over time. So our vision for the next 5 years is to prioritize the construction of Helen Elementary, where the bond to pass. We would then be contemplating Sequim High School and also contemplating potentially simultaneous construction of those projects. Greywolf Elementary would be next, along with looking at the multi-sport athletic complex, and then transportation improvements happening throughout as these construction projects are occurring. We also know that the safety vestibule entrances are going to be a priority as we move through this 5 years. And I just want to address enrollment because this is something that people do ask me about. And we had an enrollment forecast done just in 2024 all the way to 2050. And what's interesting to note here is that we contemplated the residential construction that would be occurring. And one factor I would like everyone to know is that the forecast demonstrated to us this is with contemplating the residential construction, that the building of homes in the next 10 years is challenging because of the decline of birth rate globally. That if you build a number of constructions, of course, you'll gain some students, but only about 17 students per 100 homes. And that's because the rate of students being born is just reduced across the board. So you'll see here that the increase in enrollment is considered, and our construction will also consider that, but it won't be something that we predict is substantial because we've been told that even if you build considerably, there aren't the students being born out there to necessarily bring in mass. But we are fortunate in our district that we are going to be seeing increased enrollment. So we just asked people to remember to vote. The voting period, ballots will be out January 24th, and the special election is on the 11th. Online registration deadline is February 3rd, and the in-person registration deadline on February 11th. We're just call to action to our community. We just hope folks share that this is happening, that this choice is out there. We would love anyone on this call today to share this far and wide and to let people know we want no surprises when a ballot shows up in someone's home that they question what it's for. We want everyone to know we're asking these questions. And we have a new school website look that has just come out this week. We are prioritizing a 2025 bond and EP&O Levy tab. It contains all kinds of information for stakeholders in our community, so you can get right into that and see, hopefully go to the FAQ and have your questions answered. We're also open to taking calls, and we have many, many presentations coming up. Here they are. The community forum is happening tonight at 6, and then we have these tour opportunities. We'd love people to come so we can take them around the school and see what we are encountering each day with our students. Also, we'll be doing many presentations to stakeholder groups. So I just would like to say thank you, and I'm open to take any questions as we conclude.
Great, thank you. It's really thorough presentation.
Thank you.
And I can tell you're practiced at this point if we're the 24th time you've done it.
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah. So guys, any questions, specific questions for Regan? Let's see. Comparatively, here's one from Angela. Comparatively, what is the state of Port Angeles schools compared to Sequim's?
Port Angeles schools are of similar vintage to Sequim and actually a bit older in a couple of cases. Their high school is a bit older than ours, probably by decade. They have an elementary, I think, that maybe even 20 years older than our oldest school. But many of our campuses are of the same vintage. We actually talk about that a lot, that the Olympic Peninsula has many, many facilities that just simply were built in the 60s and 70s. And so we're all in need.
I know when I've driven around the Seattle area, especially Kirkland or Bellevue, the east side, and seeing those enormous, amazing new facilities, I just, eh, I become so envious of it all. Like,
Well,
wow, our community doesn't have anything like that.
Well, one story I'd share is what our students tell us, and I hear this from an interesting source, bus drivers. Bus drivers are taking our student athletes, music students, field trips to other facilities, and they report that students get off the bus and they're in awe of what they see. And they sometimes comment, oh, why can't we have that? And so this is a real opportunity for our community to contemplate what is the right time? What is the right approach? How can we move our district forward and also be part of the community growth that's going on this peninsula? It's not just
Mhm.
school districts. Think of what's happening with City of Sequim. Think of what's happening with Peninsula College, EDC, businesses growing. So it's an exciting time, really
Mhm.
is.
How many times have we not been able to pass a bond, construction bond in Sequim? Is it
Um,
five?
we have had, I believe it's been 5 times, 2014, multiple times in 15, also in 16. And I'd have to check prior to that, but we've had
Yeah.
multiple times. Mhm.
Representative Theringer, do you want to add any 2 cents?
2 cents. Yeah, this is a challenge, as Superintendent Nichols knows. School construction. We're actually working at the legislative level to try and come up with a different system from School Construction Assistance Program. SCAP was referred to. We're calling it SCAPper because we're trying to replace it. And make it more cost effective for the districts and clearer what the state is going to pay versus what the local bond will pay. Sometimes folks that are opposed to the bonds, they can obfuscate what's being paid for, and they assume the state's going to pay for a certain amount or pay for it all, and that's just not the case. But right now, the program is based on a square footage, and Superintendent Nichols talked about the different formulas. It's really a pretty arcane, complicated formula, and we're trying to streamline that. The big difference would be that you would get more money that would go towards the project, but it would not be an entitlement. It would be a competitive list. Right now, if you pass a bond, you're guaranteed that money based on the square footage, and the age of the student. And we're going to try to change that to a more effective formula, but again, it would be competitive, not be an entitlement. So that will probably be legislation, not the first year of this biennium, but the second year of the biennium. We're working on that process, but it's a problem statewide, the convoluted sort of funding mechanisms that the state uses for school construction.
Because it seems that wealthy communities more regularly pass bonds and at high levels, and then they get the automatic match from SCAP. But poor communities, if they don't pass the bond, then they don't get the state funding. Is that
Yeah,
kind of
and so
what
we
you're trying to
supplement that
address?
with school modernization and other funding, but it's not enough. And so, if you think about it, somebody in Issaquah, right, or Bellevue, they can pass a bond for, you know, $600 million, and the bond rate's, $1.20. if we were to do something like this, because of our property value rated to be like $8, $9 a thousand, and that's just not doable. So that's part of this work we're doing is we would adjust it into maybe 2 or 3 categories, and you would compete against other districts that have that low property value, and then the state would step up, and we'd probably cap the levy rate for a district. Say if it's a $20 million building and the district has valuation of like 8 million that's taxable, that's just not going to work. So we would tax them at probably a limit of, and that's what the work we have to figure out, say $1.60 or $1.70, and then the state would make up the rest. But again, we would have a list, on need, and it would be competitive, and then we'd work down that list. And that's the way we fund a lot of things like community colleges, four-year schools, a lot of the competitive, almost all the categories that we have in the capital budget have that sort of prioritized list, and we just work down the list depending on the funds we have. So that's 2 cents worth.
Thank you. Regan, one other important comment is that I know Forma, who's been hired by the Port Angeles School District, was selected because they're not from around here, and they're, a I-5 corridor company, but 83% of the project would be hired potentially by local companies. So is that something that the school board is looking at, is trying to make, if this passes, whatever entity you hire, a consideration for being able to hire local contractors to serve some of this work so that we keep some of a lot of the local taxpayer money staying local?
Great question. So our school board does have policy around bidding projects such as this, and there is, of course, consideration for local benefit, and of what we've shown through the capital levy, we certainly have that interest. So when it comes to bidding projects in the school sector, low bidding is a requirement. And so we are talking internally right now about what we do want to bring to our school board to share, that we have this interest in being able to promote and include and partner with local labor. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is a conversation that is happening right now.
Great. Yeah, I'd love for Michael, I think is his name,
Yes,
to talk to Marty Brewer about how they were able to successfully have a component of their evaluation looking at how much of the general contractors piece would be coming from out of area.
I'm happy to tell you that conversation has already taken place.
Great.
So
we've
started that synergy, and I see another question in the chat about this. If Sequim School District were to pass the bond, and we have a school construction bond passing already in Port Angeles, could there be synergy in packaging things up? And the point about that is one that we've certainly talked about, and we would be interested in knowing where there can be synergy, of course, with selection of contractors and delivery methods for projects like school bond construction. It could be something that works well, something that could have challenges, and we'll be investigating all of that, because we do see the potential there. And one that's been brought up to me by other community members is just simply the asbestos abatement, because of the vintage of all of our buildings. And there are only so many companies that come and do that type of work. So our eyes are open and we're interested.
Right.
I also see another comment in there about attracting professionals to the area, and school-age children coming along with the families of those professionals. It is absolutely true. The Realtors Association has spoken to me about this for sure, that there are folks who are coming. They are getting job offers from either the hospital, EP&O Labs, other entities for engineering, legal, medical, and then they tour schools. and they decide that this community might not be for them. And I will tell you right now, we want people to understand what's under the hood in our schools and not just judge us by the cover, which are our facilities and how they look. So we're working really hard to recognize that this is a real component. And we want people to understand not only we're working toward improving the infrastructure and the facilities, but also what we're doing inside the buildings too. We're a tremendous school district with a lot going on. And I know Port Angeles, the same.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So it's 9:02, so I think we'll call it a morning, and we'll have the slides and the video of this up later today if anybody wants to access it or share it with somebody else. And with that, Regan, thank you so much for joining us and providing us this presentation. We really appreciate all you do.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.